मध्यमा अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. We are in the middle of the study of the Bhagavad Gita. We are fortunate to make a very systematic study of the entire Bhagavad Gita. We have reached almost 50%. We are in the middle of the 9th chapter. 9th chapter, Krishna promises to give us a royal secret. And today's verses from verse 3 to verse 10 is the most important part of perhaps the whole of Bhagavad Gita according to Swami Paramatmananda. Because here is where Krishna reveals a real secret, the higher form of God. To be able to understand this, we need the blessings of Goddess Saraswati. It was nice that we had a nice invocation to Goddess Saraswati to be able to clearly understand Bhagwan in his higher format, who's everywhere, who's also within ourselves. To be able to understand this also requires that we listen to the Bhagavad Gita with a certain amount of Shraddha. Shraddha means what we are listening to is gospel truth. It is 100% truth. To tell us about this, Dr. Sanjay, it is your time, Dr. Sanjay Banakal.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Chapter 9. Rajavidya Rajaguhya Yoga. Now we are in verse number 3. Ashraddhadhana Purush Dharmasyasya Parantapa Aprapya Mam Nivartante Mrityu Samsara Vatmani. Now in this chapter 9, the first 3 verses are introductory verses which deals, now this chapter 9 deals with the nature of God once again. Now we have already seen this nature of God which has been described by Krishna in the chapter 7. The subsequent chapter, the previous chapter, was a deviation wherein he mentioned about Saguna Upasana, which is worshipping of God with attributes, and which is to be practiced throughout life to gain liberation.
Practice computer.
Liberation is not guaranteed in this life if one practices Saguna Upasana, but he says it is possible after the death. Now this is a very difficult process which we have already seen, and it is not even verifiable according to Swamiji. So what Krishna does now is he emphasizes on the Nirguna Ishvara Upasana to get liberated right here in this life itself. So, and enjoy the freedom which can be verified. Hence, this particular chapter deals with the Nirguna Ishvara, and hence Krishna advertises heavily in the first 2 verses by saying that this knowledge of Nirguna Ishvara is a royal knowledge. That's the Raja Vidya. And it is also the most secret knowledge, Raja Guhya. Why is it such a secretive knowledge? Because people do not want to come to this knowledge at all, for the simple reason they are attracted towards the material benefits and not towards the spiritual benefit. So very few people who get into this, and hence it remains as a secret. Hence Krishna says that he will teach this knowledge, which is the Rajaguhya and Rajavidya, to Arjuna very clearly. He says that this knowledge is the greatest purifier, and it is imperishable knowledge, and it is very easy to accomplish. For whom? For those who believe in this knowledge, or those who have got Shraddha or faith. Hence, faith is a very important quality that is required in order to get the benefit of this teaching. The ultimate goal is to get liberated right here in this Janma itself. So he says, Krishna says in this verse that if one doesn't have faith in this teaching, they will never get liberated. Now, this is true in all aspects of life. Without having faith, we do not get the complete benefit out of that. If a patient goes to a doctor and if he doesn't have a faith in the doctor, I don't think that medicine will work very well. Hence, faith is a very important quality one needs to have. Now, this quality of faith is very important because now we do not know what is the result of this, but we need to surrender completely, and that is called as faith. If we know about it, there is no need for any faith. But since we do not know, it's uncharted territory, we need to completely surrender to God, and that is the Shraddha we need to have. So Krishna mentions about this by saying in the first verse itself, he referred Arjuna as Anasuyavi. Anasuya is a quality which is a non-critical, which one should have a non-critical attitude. Arjuna is a qualified student because he can assimilate this teaching simply because he has this non-critical attitude. Now, if a person doubts this teaching, or a person has just passing interest in this, academic interest, for the sake of scholarship, if he takes up to this teaching, he will never get the benefit. That's what Krishna says in this important verse. Coming to the verse, he says Purusha, an individual. Here, Purusha doesn't mean all-pervading consciousness. The individuals who do not have faith, that is Ashraddhadhana, who do not have faith, in this Vedantic teaching, here Dharma or Punya, here Dharma means the Brahmajnana or the Vedantic teaching. Now he says such people do not attain me, aprapyama. They miss the opportunity to gain this Jivatma Paramatma Aikya Jnanam, which is the liberating knowledge, and they miss the freedom. So he sympathizes with them and such people. He says they will continue to remain nivartante. Here nivartante means they continue to remain in samsara. Nivartante doesn't have a regular meaning here, which means to return back. So they continue to stay in samsara. What is samsara? The pleasure and pain, the sorrow, the fear of age, old age, disease and death. Out of which death is the highest fear one has in life, and hence he says they continue to stay in mrityu samsara vartmani. So they cannot overcome this, and hence that's the actual teaching begins with the subsequent verses, which is the 4th verse onwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjay, for a very nice explanation, giving the overview introduction up to verse 3. You also stressed the very importance of Shraddha. Just like when we are in unknown territory, we trust the GPS to turn left, right till we reach our goal. So to understand the rest of these verses, let us listen not from our heads, but from the heart to see what Krishna is trying to convey. Verse 4 is Chaitana. Your time starts.
Maya tatam idam sarvam jagat avyaktamurtina mastani sarva bhutani na chaham tesha vastitaha. So up to the 3rd verse, the introduction was given by Lord Krishna about the Nirguna Ishvara Jnanam. From this 4th verse up to the 10th verse, Lord Krishna expands on this subject of Nirguna Ishvara Sarupam. This is the central theme of the 9th chapter, and Swamiji says it is the essence of all the Upanishads. Lord Krishna talks about the higher nature of God, and in this verse, he gives 3 definitions of this higher nature of God. The first definition is mentioned in the first line. He says, Avyakta Murtina, which means the higher nature of God is formless and has no attributes. Avyaktam here means Indriya Agocharam, not perceptible to any sense organs. And Murti means form. This means that if you have had any experience of God, then it is only that of a lower nature of God. This Avyakta nature is mentioned in the well-known verse from Kathopanishad, Ashabdam, Asparsham, Arupam, Avyayam. The higher God, that is Brahman, is not an experience. It is without attributes. Once this formless nature of Lord is understood, then you know that such a God has no location. There is no coming and going like the Saguna Ishvara. Once you discover this higher nature of God, then there is no question of losing that God. Thus, the first feature of the higher God is Avyaktam or Nirgunam. The second feature Krishna mentions is Idam Sarvam Tatam. Tatam means Vyaptam or pervading. So Sarvam Tatam is Sarva Vyaptam or Sarva Gatam. Brahman is all pervading. There is no spatial limitation. This is in tune with the first feature, which is Avyaktam, formless, having no boundaries. So God is boundless and all pervading. Therefore, you need not travel anywhere to see God. He is in the temple, here, there, everywhere, and within us also. We need not travel to merge with the Lord. In Vedanta, merger or aikyam is a wisdom that the Lord is never away. Dropping the notion of division is merger or aikyam. In the second line of this verse, Krishna gives a third feature. He says, Mastani Sarva Bhutani. It means all things and beings, Sarva Bhutani, are resting in me, Mastani. He says, I, the higher nature, I am the Vishwa Adhara. I am the supporter of this universe. So the third feature is Jagat Adhishthanam or Jagat Adhara. At the same time, he says, Na chaham teshva vastitaha. I am not supported by the world. So the last line is, all beings are in me, but I am not in them. What does Lord Krishna mean by this? This statement becomes clear depending upon from which angle you see this, whether Pratibhasika, the dream, Vyavahara, the waking, or from the Paramarthika angle, the absolute. Just as a dream cannot exist without you, but you can exist without a dream, so too the world cannot exist without the Lord, but Lord can exist without the world. Swami Chinmayananda calls this a relationless relationship between the real Satyam and the unreal Mithya. We can also use the example of the rope and snake here. The rope can say, the snake is in me, but I am not in the snake. That is what Krishna means when he says, all beings exist in me, but I am not in them. He has made a similar statement in the 7th chapter, 12th verse of Bhagavad Gita. So one who has understood this superimposition or adhyasa, then this is clearly understood. Therefore, this is the true vision which Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi calls Saddarshanam. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chaitanya, for a very clear explanation. From now on, we get into a real cryptic part of the Bhagavad Gita up to verse 10. And for some of those who have joined us recently, my suggestion is that you read each verse as given by Swami Param's notes. I will request Neeta if you could put it into our new email group so that many of those who may not have access to it can read these verses before they come to the class. Ahalya, it is your time to explain one of the most difficult verses of the whole Bhagavad Gita.
Namaste, sir. Harihi Om. Am I audible, sir?
Very clear.
The 5th verse of the Rajavidya Rajaguhya Yoga is a googly verse. It can be tricky if the basics of Vedanta are not clear. It is actually in continuation from where Chaitanya left. It deals with the 3 sattas, the Pratibhasika, Vyavaharika, and the Paramarthika. Only when this concept is clear, the different orders of reality can coexist is grasped, the seeming contradiction between the 4th and the 5th verse can be understood clearly. Of course, faith, as was mentioned in the 3rd verse, is a sine qua non for a clear understanding. In the 4th to the 10th shlokas, he brings out various aspects of Brahman. Brahman as Sarvagata and Brahman as Avyakta that we just saw. In the 5th verse, he brings out the next 2 points, Brahman as Mithya Jagadadhisthana and Brahman as Srishti Sthiti Laya Karaka. The 3rd and the 4th features will be highlighted in this 5th verse, which is also similar to the 5th verse of Ishavasya Upanishad that we just saw. Tadejati tannaijati tad dure tadvantike tadantarasya sarvasya goes the 5th verse of Ishavasya, which also seemed contradictory to begin with. And the 5th verse goes this way. Nacha matstani bhutani pashyame yogamaishwaram bhuta brahnacha bhutasto mamatma bhuta bhavanaha. This last line actually rings a very familiar bell, that it is very much like the first shloka of Vishnu Sahasranama, Bhutakrit Bhavo Bhutatma Bhuta Bhavanaha. Considering that both these come from Mahabharata, one from Bhishma Parva, the other from Anushasana Parva, the similarity of language can be understood. The meaning of the shloka, in fact, the beings are not in me, see my divine yoga. I myself am the creator of the beings and the sustainer of the beings, but I am not in the beings. The detailed understanding. Bhutani na chamatstani. The beings do not rest in me. They are not in me at all. In the fourth verse we heard, Matstani sarva bhutani. They are all in me. Shankara Bhashya gives an answer for this seeming contradiction. From one angle it is existent because for appearance it is very much there. But on closer inquiry, we find that it has got only seeming existence. Therefore, we say non-existent. Let's look at an example. We see the sky is blue in color, which is just an illusion caused by scattering of light waves. However, even after we know this, we still see the sky as blue. So, blueness of the sky is experientially available but factually non-existent. Such an experience, as per Vedanta, is termed mithya, anything seemingly existent. It is neither sat nor asat, but mithya. From one angle, it seems to exist, from another angle, it is really non existent. To make this point even more clear, let's take the common example of dream experience. Is it existent or non existent? Since I experienced it, it was existent when I was asleep. The minute I wake up, from a higher standpoint, the waker's standpoint, the dream doesn't exist. It is no other object than my own thought. So, two orders of reality unfold, the dreamer's reality and the waker's reality, where dream is existent in the former and non existent in the latter. So, an experientially available but factually non existent entity is mithya. I remember a small poem. All these you are, and each is partly true, and none is false, and none is wholly true. Therefore, by accepting and rejecting the universe, Krishna points out that from this body standpoint, the world is existent, Mithya Jagat, and Brahman is the support of this Mithya Jagat Adhishtana. In fact, we say Mithya Jagat Adhishtana Muktida Mukti Rupini Lasya Priya Layakari. In the Lalita Sahasranama, this word is elaborated. The next one, second part of the first line, Pashyame Yogamaishwaram. May you appreciate my higher yoga, my higher nature, the Paramarthika Satya. Empirical reality is non-existent from the standpoint of absolute reality. And the Lord says, therefore, this is my higher nature. May you recognize Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. The Vedantic essence which Krishna gives here, he comes with, completes the third feature, that is Mithya Jagat Adhishtana with this. Mamatma Bhuta Bhavanaha Bhuta Bhrit. Mamatma, my higher nature. Bhuta Bhavana is Paraprakriti. Bhavana is Srishti Karanam. Utpadayati Bhavayati iti Bhavaha. Bhrit is entire. Bhuta is entire creation. So he is the Srishti Karta. Bhuta Bhrit. Bhrit is Sthiti Karta. Just as the waker is the supporter of the dream world, Brahman projects and supports the Mithya Jagat. We have to understand the unsaid. It is also Layakarakam. Cha says that, including time and space, the Lord can swallow anything. Na bhutastaha. I am the supporter of the creation, but I am not supported by creation. That means the world cannot exist without Brahman. Brahman can exist without the world. Ocean can exist without animals in there, but the animals cannot exist without the ocean. Dream cannot exist without the waker. The waker, such in a minute more, waker can exist without the dream. Satya can exist without Mithya. Mithya can't exist without Satya. The Satya Mithya Sambandha or the Adhishtana Adhyasa Sambandha, as in the Upanishadic terminology, is brought about in this shloka. To sum up, the movie is projected onto the screen. The movie has no existence other than the screen, yet the screen is not in the movie. Similarly, the world is superimposed on Ishvara. The world borrows its existence from Ishvara. However, Ishvara is not a part of the world. The takeaway would be play the game of Vyavahara and be anchored in Paramartha. Thank you. Namaste, sir.
Namaste. Thank you, Ahalya, for an excellent explanation. You have used every example that is possible to make this googly verse as clear as possible. Great job indeed. I still wish that at the end of this class, if anybody wants further clarifications, because I want everyone to be clear about this verse and all the subsequent verses. And as a study group, we will take everyone along in the subtle understanding of these verses. Great work. We will go to the next. Sharmila, it is your time.
Sir, that verse is allotted to me now, Sukanya.
Sorry, Sukanya. Sorry.
Yeah,
I had to
it's okay,
go.
sir. Okay. Thank you. Hari Om. Can I start, sir? Am I audible?
Very clear. Go ahead.
Yeah. This chapter is a sequel to the 7th chapter. The 7th chapter deals with Ishvara Swarupa, Ishvara Gnana, both Saguna and Nirguna, Para, Apara Prakriti, knowledge about the nature of God. This 9th chapter emphasizes on Nirguna Ishvara Upasana to attain Jivan Mukti. This is a shift from this 8th chapter, Jivatma to Paramatma, Apara Prakriti to Para Prakriti, finite to infinite. Lord Krishna is promoting Jivan Mukti here over Krama Mukti, the indirect way to liberation at a later date. This is called Rajavidya Rajaguhya Yoga, the highest knowledge, the liberating knowledge, so Rajavidya. Secretive knowledge, so Guhya, because it is not easily accessible to the unprepared mind. Unprepared mind referred to here as the higher nature is veiled by the delusion of Maya. Therefore, the Lord declares Shraddha is the highest priority for gaining this knowledge. Some salient features of the higher nature of Nirguna Ishvara are quoted in the Upanishads as guidelines for spiritual seekers. Ishvara is Sarvagata, all-pervading, Avyakta, non-perceptible to the sense organs, Mithya Jagadati Adhisthana, substratum of the unreal world, Asangatvam, not tainted by impurities in the external world, Srishti Sthiti Laya Karanam, Karta Bhokta Rahita. So, the Ishvara Sarvagata, Avyakta, Mithya Jagadhisthana, Srishti Sthiti Laya Karana. These are beautifully explained by Chetna and by Ahalya. Now, I will explain the next higher feature of Brahma, Asangatvam, as the higher nature. Here is the verse. Yatha kashastito nityam vayu sarvatra go mahan tatha sarvani bhutani matsya nitu upadharya. Yatha, just as, vayu sarvatra go mahan, the great all-pervading wind, akasha stito nityam, ever present in the sky, tatha, same way, sarvani bhutani, all beings, matsyani, are in me, iti upadharayaha, thus you understand. The meaning is, just as the great all-pervading wind is ever present in the sky, in the same manner, all beings are in me, thus you understand. Lord Krishna is revealing his Vishwarupa. The space supports everything in the universe, Chara, Achara. It also supports the all-pervading wind, which is taken as an example by Lord Krishna here. Property of space is Shabda, property of wind is Sparsha. As per the Srishti Prakarana, the 5 gross elements, Panchabhutas, Bhumi, water, fire, wind and space, manifest out of the 8-fold unmanifest forms, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, the cosmic ego, the cosmic intellect, and the mind. Lord manifested as Shabda in Akasha, Sparsha in Vayu, Rupa in fire, Rasa in water, Gandha in Prithvi. Scriptures introduce God to us at 3 levels. God in person as Ekarupa, God as universe in Vishwarupa, God as Nirguna in consciousness. Mundaka Upanishad defines the ultimate reality. The verse 6. Yat tad greshyama grahyama gotrama varnam achakshuhu shotram tadapani padam nityam vibhum sarvagatam susukshmam tadavyayam yadbhuti yonim paripashyanti dhira. Imperishable, truth, formless, eternal, all-pervading, and adrishyam as space. Akasha is all-pervading, formless. It supports Vayu, which is ever present in the space. Just as the space is all-pervading and accommodates everything in the universe, Brahman is all-pervading and is the Adhishthanam for the entire creation. Lord Krishna is highlighting his higher nature as Asangatvam here. He says, I support the whole universe and the universe is resting in me, but I am not tainted by any impurities, defects, or changes in the world. He cites a beautiful example of space, whose nature is close to Atma. Similarities between space and Brahman are brought out here. Both are formless, both are all-pervading, both accommodate everything in creation, both do not undergo any modifications due to fire, water, external causes, as in Bhagavad Gita Sloka 2, Acchedo Yamadahyo Yam. Because of their similarities, the Akasha Tattva in space is considered ideal for contemplation as Atmaswarupa in meditation. The strong, mighty wind is all-pervading and ever-present in the entire space. But the smell, either good or bad, dust or smoke, present in the wind does not affect the space at all. This is asangatvam. Though they are together, the impurities in the air does not taint the space. The entire creation is a manifestation of the Lord, also a source and ground for dissolution of the universe. He is the eternal cause, subtle force behind all the glory. One who perceives this knowledge of essential nature of Atma, which is inherent in creation, sees the Vishwarupa, the Lord. Lord represents totality. Hari Om.
Thank you, Sukanya. Another really brilliant presentation. Nice explanation of Brahman as Akasha and the Vishwadhara. Two words which I really love, which explain Brahman, is called immanent and transcendental. Immanent means in and through. Brahman is in and through everything in creation. When Brahman is in and through everything in creation, Brahman is that which is closest to you or you. Transcendental means not easily perceptible. You need to be extremely sensitive because it is there, but you can really miss it. So that is what this verse says. Thank you, Sukanya. We go to Vasumati. Your time starts.
Yeah, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Am I audible, sir?
Very clear. Go ahead.
Sarva Bhutani Kaunteya Prakritim Yanti Mamikam Kalpakshaye Punastani Kalpado Visrujamyaham. Tatparya, O Arjuna, at the end all dissolve into my presence. Again at the beginning of the rhythm cycle, I create them. In the fifth verse, as explained by Dr. Ahalya, Krishna had pointed out that he is the Shrishti Sthiti Laya Karanam of this entire universe. A further explanation to this Jagat Karanatvam of Brahman is given in these verses 7 and 8. So how does the Lord create? Here Krishna says, before creation of this universe, the universe was already existent in me in unmanifest form or potential form, because nothing can be newly created even according to the law of conservation of matter and energy. God says, I do not create a world at all. The world was already existent in me, existent in seed form, potential form, unmanifest form, just as a huge tree existing within a seed. But in what form? Avyakta Rupena. Similarly, Krishna says, all the details of this universe is already coded in me, in Avyakta Rupam. That manifest universe is called Prakriti or Maya, world in seed form, matter in potential form. This unmanifest universe evolves into manifestation. We have seen this in the previous chapters also. In second chapter, verse 28, he says, Avyaktadini bhutani vyaktamadhyani bharata avyakta nidananyeva tatraka paridevana. And also in chapter 8 and verse 18, he again talks about avyakta, avyaktad vyaktavyaha sarvaha prabhavantya aharagame ratriagame praliyante tatraiva avyakta sangake. The world comes to manifestation and again it goes back to unmanifestation. The creation is also expansion and contraction, unfoldment and foldment. Swamiji goes on to give the example of dream here. All dreams that we have are nothing but the impressions and that we will have undergone, gathered from our observations and experiences. You can never dream anything that you have not experienced. My dream is potentially there in me, the waker. Similarly, the dream-like world is in Brahman in the unmanifest form, which as we know is called Maya or Prakriti. Krishna says, in my presence, the whole creation rises and resolves. Sarva Bhutani Prakritim Yanti. All the beings come back to me alone. In what form? In the Prakriti form, unmanifest form, otherwise called the Maya form. So Prakritim Yanti Mamikam. Mamikam here means belonging to me. That is the Prakriti which is dependent on me, just as the manifest world is dependent on me. The unmanifest Prakriti is also dependent on me. Just as the manifest dream is dependent on the waker, similarly, the unmanifest dream vasanas, the imprint vasanas and the samskaras are also dependent on the waker. So the imprint becomes the dream becomes vasanas. I am the substratum of both. Similarly, Krishna says, the world resolves into Prakriti, which is dependent on me, Mamikam. And when does this happen? Not in the near future. Kalpa Kshaye, at the end of a Kalpa. And they all resolve into me at Kalpa Kshaye. I'll not go into the explanation of Kalpa and Yuga because that was done on Friday by Dr. Sanjo Malhotra in very great detail. So at Kalpa though, at the beginning of the next Kalpa, again it will come. Creation never ends permanently. It is only a temporary rest for creation. When Brahmaji gets up after 1000 Chaturyugas, the creation happens. Aham Visrujami. Hari Om. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Vasumati, for nice explanation and also bringing out all the other verses which brought out the same thought. Now, each one of you, when you come for this class, you have come with so much preparation. So at that time, the whole class was within you in an unmanifest form. The moment you get a chance to speak, it comes into manifestation. So you will see how what Krishna says, see, everything is already there, but it requires its own time to come into manifestation and then go into unmanifestation. 9th verse for 8th verse for Nita.
Thank you, sir. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. We continue to discuss the nature of consciousness. That is, we continue to discuss our true nature. So listen carefully, my friends. This verse is is in detailing the 5th verse and the 7th verse. It's it's explaining the Jagat Shrishti Sthiti Laya Karanam nature of the consciousness. Prakritim swam avastabhaya visarjami punah punah bhutagramam imam kritsnam avasham prakrate vashat. Aham punah punah. In a cyclic process, I repeatedly create this world. In the previous verse also, Krishna said, I create this world, Visarjami, Aham Visarjami. And then he repeats over here, Punah Punah. The reason is for emphasis. That is, this is a cyclic process which happens again and again and again. And so that is just for emphasis. And just to give the picture which Dr. Sanjay Malhotra had said last week about the one cyclic process is about 311 trillion years, 40 billion Earth years. So that's the one cycle, and that's and that goes on again and again, punah punah. In Vedanta, we talk about creation, that is manifestation and unmanifestation, like Vasumati explained, and it's not a linear process, because linear process we will get into endless logical problems. And how does the creation happen? How does this manifestation happen? Prakritim swam avastabhaya, that is with the resorting to the Prakriti. Again, Vasumati said Prakriti is the potential universe that exists within the consciousness, and it's also called as Maya. And then this, so Brahman uses this potential form of creation for the next creation. And what does he create? Imam Krishnam Bhuta Gramam. Gramam means village generally, but here it means the multitude. The multitude of beings and things are created. That is the whole cosmos, cosmic creation happens, not just the village, but the galaxies, the solar system, the mountains, the people, they are all created again and again. what type of things and beings are they? Avasham prakrate vasat. They are helpless beings because they don't play any role in the creation. They automatically, the manifestation takes place, and it's based on the inclinations of these beings, and that is the vasanas. That's how the beings take birth, and the whole thing is under the control of the consciousness. Manages this whole thing, and I just want to bring out the beings don't play a role in this process of creation, and the potency of this consciousness can be seen with the vastness of the creation. And after creation, the previous verse said that it is asangatvam. It has no connection with with this creation. So concluding, the Lord says, I create again and again the entire magnitude of things and beings who are helpless, being under the control of Prakriti. So with this, we'll assume that consciousness is doing an action by being the Sriti, Shrishti, Sthiti, Laya, Karanam. This will be answered in the next verse, that in spite of creating, there is no action being done by consciousness. So listen on. Thank you.
Thank you, Neeta, for another nice explanation. All the speakers did a great job today. That word Avasham keeps staring at me. Avasham means all beings are helplessly created again and again. Now, those of us who have come into the field of studying the Gita, we need to see that, can we take control? Can we decide that we get out of that sorry go-round in this life itself? Isn't it? Can we take? So maybe then there is some help for all of us. We should not be so helpless among all the beings that are going to be created again and again. Captain Guru, it's your time, sir.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
To the main verse, I would like to recite a doha from Sant Kabir, Amrit Bani.
Go ahead.
Guru Govind dau khade, kaku lage pao. Guru Govind dau khade, kaku lage pao. Balihari Guru aapki, Govind diyo bataye Kabira, Govind diyo bataye. The translation is read out as follows. I face both the teacher, Guru and Govind, and my Guru, whom should I bow down to first? I first bow down to my Guru because he's the one who showed me the path to Govind. Now I go on to the verse. Nacha ma tani karmani nebadanti dhananjaya udasina vad asinam asakatam tesu karmasu. Here Lord Krishna is addressing Arjuna. This is the Adhyaya 9, Shloka 9. O Dhananjaya, all this work cannot bind me. I am ever detached from all these material activities, seated as though neutral. One should not think in this connection that Paramatma has no engagement. In the spiritual work, he is always engaged. In the Brahma Samahita, it is stated, Atma Ramasya Tasyati Prakirtya na Samagamaha. He is always involved in this eternal, blissful spiritual activities, but he has nothing to do with material activities. He is neutral in the material activities. The example can be given of a High Court judge sitting on his bench. By his order, so many things are happening. By his order, so many things are happening. Someone is being hanged, someone is being put into jail, someone is awarded with a huge amount of wealth, but he is still neutral. In the Vedanta Sutra, it is stated, Vesamasya Nargame Nat, he is not situated in the dualities of this material world. He is transcendental to these dualities. Nor is he attached to the creation and annihilation of this material world. The living entities take their different forms in the various species of life according to their past deeds, and Bhagavan doesn't interfere with them. From Swami Param's talks, so in this Krishna talks about the final feature of Ishvara, the sixth description of Ishvara. He gives by way of answering a possible doubt. When Bhagavan says, I am the creator of the universe, Bhagavan seems to perform an action. And what is this action? The very production of the universe itself seems to be an action. And if Bhagavan is a Srishti Karta, he will have Kartra Vata, and if Bhagavan is a Karta, he will have to become what a Bhokta, the enjoyer of the result of action. A doer will have to become an enjoyer also. As you do, so you become. And Bhagavan must be in a bigger trouble because of the creation of the universe alone. Many living beings are suffering. If there was only pralayam all the time, if this world, these people, all these things were not there, we will not have any problem at all to face, but many people are facing varieties of problems, all because of what? Why did they create? Why did he create? So whenever you have a serious problem, you have the question. You have to ask the question, why did Bhagavan create? Could he not have kept quiet saying Shiva, Shiva? He could not remain quiet, and he creates with a lot of problems, including mosquitoes, and he creates bodies for us. And then he seems to enjoy our suffering. Bhagavan seems to be extraordinary sadist, and if Bhagavan is doing such an action, he will have to pay the price also. So this doubt may come, for which Krishna gives the answer. I am Akarti and Abhokta. I am neither the creator nor the destroyer, and therefore you cannot attribute any action or result to me. And therefore he says, Hey Dhananjaya, hey Arjuna, Tani Karmani Mam Na Nibadanti. All these actions, what are the actions? Srishti, Sthiti, Laya, Karmani, which includes killing people in old age. Death also is the job of Bhagavan, which gives pain to so many people. It is the job of Bhagavan alone. So therefore, Srishti Karta, Sthiti Karta, Laya Karta, even though actions are taking place, those karmas do not bind me at all. Now the question is, what is the secret? Bhagavan seems to do everything at the same time. The karmas do not accrue to him. How does he manage? He does not give up the karma, but at the same time he continues the karma, but he is still bound by the karma. What is the secret? He gives the secret here. Tesu karmani asakatam. I am not identified with, attached to, involved in these karmas. And therefore, if I have to get out of the shackles of karma, I need not stop the actions. Actions cannot, but what is to be handled? The abhimana, ahamkara, mamakara, abhimana alone, and therefore tesu karmasu asakatam. And then how do I remain udasinat asanam? I am as though an indifferent person. I am an uninvolved person. I am detached, and from this, Krishna is giving the clue for us also. We also can continue to be involved in action, as said in the 5th chapter. In conclusion, Nishikarsh, therefore, Abhimana Yoga is the secret of Akarta Vratam and Abhokta Vratam. No karma renunciation. Karma cannot be renounced. Karma need not be renounced. Karmani Abhimana alone has to be renounced. And whoever has done this is free from karma phalam also. Thank you, Hari Om.
Thank you, Captain Guru. That was a clear explanation, exactly what we wanted, because that's how the Lord functions, and that is what is called inaction in action. So many things happen, but it is in my presidency, under my supervision, or under my direction it happens, but I still don't do anything because there is no sense of doership, which was brought out in your explanation. We come to the last verse, Apeksha. It's your time.
Hari Om, sir.
Hari Om.
That's right. मय्याध्यक्षेण प्रकृति सूयते सचराचरम् हेतुनानेन कौन्तेय jagat viparivartate. So in this verse, this will actually help us better understand the biggest question that most of the human beings, all of us have, that when God is there in everyone, then how come the bad thoughts come or the bad actions take place? So this verse will definitely help us. So what this verse explains about is the Sakshi Bhava principle, by which the consciousness or the God within us works. So what is Sakshi Bhava? So Krishna is explaining here, Sakshi Bhava is remaining detached and remaining without any abhimana is called Sakshi Bhava. So he's saying, hey Arjuna, I am not willfully doing anything in this world. It is just in my presence. Maya or matter or this Prakriti is doing its function. So how do we understand it? It's like the light in this hall, which illuminates this hall. So the light is illuminating the hall, but whether good action takes place or bad action takes place, it does not affect the light. The light will still continue to function. So light is not affected by the karma phalam of the actions that are taking place in the hall. And that is how Krishna is explaining, that is my presence. Now, when he talks about my presence, he is not talking about his shariram or the physical form here. He's talking about the all-pervading consciousness that is present there. So the biggest question that comes is that, okay, if consciousness is all there, then how does it function? What is its role? The consciousness, we can understand it further by understanding how electricity works. If you look at electricity, it amplifies the role of the gadget. For example, when electricity flows in the bulb, it helps it illuminate. If the electricity flows in the mobile, then it helps us talk to each other. If electricity flows in the fan, it helps rotate. So that's the role of the electricity, to amplify. It blesses the nature of the function of the gadget. Similarly, the consciousness also does the same, that it blesses as per the nature of the thought of the person. So if it's a Rajasic mind, if it's a Sattvic mind, the consciousness will bless and help help function it as the Sattvic mind. If it's a Rajasic mind, accordingly, the consciousness, it will be blessed by the consciousness and Rajasic activities will take place. And if it's a Tamasic criminal mind, the criminality is determined by the nature of the mind. So Krishna is saying this. When we say that, God is present, then why does bad things happen? So Krishna is saying that my presence is just there to enliven the instrument. But how the thoughts happen, how the actions happen is determined by the nature of the thought in that particular mind or person. I'm just there to bless. I'm just there to enliven that person or human being. So he's saying that in my sheer presence, the Prakriti or the Maya produces the entire universe of creation and the things and the beings. The next line is Hetuna Anena, which is like, again, it is saying because of my sheer presence, you can see the whole drama is going on, right? So God is like the light in this room. So you might think that when light is not playing any role, then we can as well switch off the light or the God. But that is not possible. The presence is required. As soon as the light is switched off, the drama will also stop. And that is why the light is required, though it is not playing the role of a teacher, it is not playing the role of a student. It is required for this drama to unfold, and it just blesses. And I think Swami Param has beautifully explained it by that electricity principle. So if we can understand that, I think this whole verse becomes very clear and gives us the answer that the consciousness is just there to bless as per the nature of the thought in that particular human being. And that's why Krishna says, Jagat Viparivartate, which means that in my presence, this entire universe revolves. So that means the entire galaxy, the Milky Way, everything is revolving just because of the presence. So just like the light is required for the drama to take place, my presence is required for the entire drama to unfold. So that's it.
Thank you, Apeksha, for another excellent presentation. Everybody did a great job. We were dealing with a very cryptic aspect of the higher nature of God from the 3rd to the 10th, which has been very nicely explained. And this is what exactly we need to do. not only we need to prepare for these verses, but we come prepared for all the verses that we are going to study, 8 verses per every alternate day. And in that way, the message of the Bhagavad Gita will be given to us very clearly. I will conclude today's class with Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhak Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We can have a few minutes